studio. We've got Mr. Raf Jacobs here in the house. A very big good afternoon to you, Raf.
Hi, very good day, Jim.
Another beautiful sunny day here in Barcelona. Not bad.
It's fantastic, and I think this last year from April till November, something like that, right?
Yeah, not bad. Well, speaking as a Brit, I'm very thankful for the blue skies.
I'm Northern European. I'm from Belgium, so I absolutely share your view.
Hey, so tell me, how have you been since last week? How's the business been?
Good. We had we working with several clients, helping them find the properties. We had probably between last time we talked last Wednesday and this week, we've probably visited something like 18 or so properties, I think.
18, wow.
Yeah, visited. Some of them we did just on our own to make a pre-selection, and some clients came and see a selection made, so really nice apartments for sale.
I tell you what, Barcelona really remains in the spotlight, doesn't it? Oh, good grief! I tell you, I was in the UK, looked in the press, there it was, 2-page spread on reasons why you should visit Barcelona.
It's why Barcelona is attractive for visiting it. It's also attractive for people who live here, young people or retired people as well, and people who look for an investment as well on the property. This week, to answer your question, between last week and today, we helped clients buy two apartments.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, one in St. Anthony, which is where the target is an investment, pure investment. Another one in Horta, which is a bit more higher up, closer to the Ronda, the highway. Very good location for renting out as well.
Very nice. Now, I know that there's always thrills and spills with buying. You're not quite sure you've got it until you've really got it. And you had one of those situations as well this week, didn't you?
Yeah, we had a funny situation. One of these purchases was the apartment was owned by a company, and Sociedad Limitada, as they say here, as a corporate structure, company structure. And in the preparation work up front, before you pay money to the owner, we do all checks. And one of the things we got loads of documentation. One document was a document from 1973, where the guy who said he wants to sell it to our client said, "Yeah, I'm the owner. I'm going to sell it." But there was no way we could prove ownership. We couldn't test it because these all documents are not electronically stored in any database. And there was a time conflict. We wanted to buy very quickly, so we could get a very good deal in terms of price and negotiation. So a lot of paperwork that had to be done and checked out with the registration offices and so on in Barcelona. We finally managed to confirm the ownership of that person, because it was typical. There were worries because it was a company structure. He was it was a big family. They own many buildings in Barcelona. They were selling just his apartment, and his brothers are in there, his nephews are in there, and so I wanted to be really sure that he can actually sell it.
You've got to be sure he's got the authority to sign on behalf
exactly,
of that
because you're going to pay money to someone, and you want to be sure. And then when we went to the notary, which was yesterday 1:30, we're there, and it's an older man, nice older Catalan man, and everything is signed in the end. We hand over the checks with the final amount to be paid, and at the notary, what happens is you pay, and then you get the keys. There's a exchange of ownership takes place at that point in time, and the man forgot the keys.
No.
So you can't believe it, but you're sitting there after an hour with the notary, and then he just says, "Oh, sorry, I forgot them." And again, then either you can trust and say, "Well, just get them to us whenever you want," but because we go there, when my lawyer comes with us to any deal we do for any client, we got a nice document drafted. It's very brief, but something that protects us, basically, right? And then we basically waited at the notary till the keys were there, just in case we got some documents in.
Sounds like a bit of a maneuver, doesn't it?
Yeah. One day I'll write a book with all these funny stories that happened in there. There's loads of these anecdotes in Barcelona.
And so, but you thought to yourself, well, basically, it's going to work out okay.
Yes, these things you can sort them out. It's a question of detecting the potential risk and then just mitigating it. So you're sure that when you pay, when you basically take your savings off your bank account and give it to someone else, that you get what you want from it, and there's no surprises.
Absolutely. No surprises. That's what investors want. And now, talking of no surprises, interesting piece in the news this week about the El Gotico region, that perhaps 50% of all of the apartments in El Gotico are currently being used for short-term let or short-term rental. So the question is what impact this might be having on the market. Do you see this as a good thing or a bad thing?
It's not an easy question, huh? Because there's many dimensions to this, and it depends how you define good and bad, because it depends who you ask and or who you talk to. I think we need to keep in mind that Gotico, or by extension, Gotico and Raval and Borne, so the old part, the medieval part of town, basically, I think historically, 20, 30 or more years ago, was one of the poorest areas of Barcelona. I mean, I've got loads of local friends here. I lived here for 17 years. My wife is Catalan from Barcelona. You couldn't or you wouldn't walk into Raval or Gotico 30 years ago. There was
too risky.
Drugs addict, there was prostitution, very risky, so not an area where you would go to. So who was living there? People with low incomes. And when people got a bit more savings, so the better off people, let's say financially better off people, they've moved out of these areas in the 80s and 90s when they could. They moved to Eixample, for example, or other areas. But because Borne was very small streets, very old buildings, there was no maintenance. And today it looked nice, but not 30 years ago. No services. There were very few schools there. No parks, for instance, not family friendly. Not safe. So those people moved out. The owners of the buildings, they had a building where they rented it at very low rents, and these still exist today. So some people still pay like 150, 200, 250 euros a month for entire apartments.
Wow.
Right, it's called what they call it renta antigua. And as an owner, you have to respect that. So it's also surprising that these things still exist, to be honest. But
yeah, well, I'm not getting that in my place, I can tell you now.
No, and most people don't. But then, if you look back in history, when the Olympics came to Barcelona, which was in '92, they opened Barcelona to the sea, basically, because the beaches didn't exist before. It was all industrial. They opened it up to the sea. They started to invest in the old part of town, the beautiful part of town, and that starts to bring more tourism as well to Barcelona. What does it mean? Because tourists, if you go to Paris or to London, where do you want to stay as a tourist? I mean, in the center or half an hour outside the center?
Sure, you want to be right in Piccadilly Circus.
Exactly, and that's what happened here as well, and what's still happening. So tourists want to be here. In that time, back in the 90s, many people have sold. The owners at that time, they had a big problem because they had buildings that required very high maintenance because they were old and required renovation, and they had very low income from their rents. So it's like high maintenance cost, low rental income. It's very hard to sustain. So many of these buildings have been sold around that time. And people who bought it, then there was a different demand coming. Younger people, people that opened shops and restaurants started a lot in Borne and Gotico first, and you still see it today. But that started at that time. So new renters paying higher rents, and I think to some extent, and now we move to this vacation rental. So tourists want to be in the center. So the good thing is, I think partially thanks to this tourism, these areas and many of these buildings and apartments have gained a lot of value. These streets have become a lot nicer, a lot safer, a lot more beautiful, a lot more pleasant to walk around. Nobody could imagine that 20 years ago. 17 years ago when I was here, I didn't go to Raval. You didn't walk in there. Now it's some streets are really becoming very, very nice. Because of tourism, the owners today, and I think that's a very human thing. If you are an owner, and it doesn't matter if you have a private apartment for yourself or if you're an investor, people want to maximize the return they can get on their money. If it's on a bank account, they move it to a savings account, or if you have a property, you're trying to rent it to the highest, at the highest possible price. That said, so what do owners do? Tourism is coming, so they start to ask tourist licenses. to move instead to a fairly low long-term rent to a model where you get higher rents and you move to a short-term rental model, a weekend, a week, vacational rentals, right? Sure. Is it good or bad? I think it's human. People just want to. If you own an apartment in the very center, what are you going to say when you rent it out? You're going to say it's fantastically located. You're 5-minute walk from the sea. You're 2 minutes from Ramblas, and you can ask more than an apartment that is not in that location and that doesn't have these features. Right?
So it's just natural, the way the market works, that this place becomes slightly more short-term.
It's I think definitely.
But what about this argument about community? Don't locals start saying, "Oh, we need more people here permanently for a different kind of environment"?
Yeah, I think I'm a big believer in you need balance in a city. You need, and that's one of the big challenges of any big city, right? How do you make it livable and pleasant for everyone? In Barcelona, we know that I think 7.7% is a number. 7.7% of apartments are used for short-term rental, vacation rental. That's a source from the city of Barcelona.
7.7.
7.7%. So
it doesn't sound that high.
No, it's not. But there's obviously some concentration, because where the tourists want to be, and they don't want to be in Pedralbes or in Horta or Sants. They want to be in close to the nice parts of Barcelona. So I think I lost your question now.
So we've established that there's a lot of positives by
yes.
enabling and allowing some short-term rentals. Some people have actually said that the criticism is unfounded about the lack of community because, as you mentioned, many Catalans had already left. So in fact, there's still actual space. There are buildings that are in a state of disrepair because the Catalan community had already left. Yes. It's not as though the short-term lets are pushing them out. The space was already there. Do you have sympathy with that argument?
Yes, but I also have sympathy for the fact that we need to find balance and that you should avoid an overconcentration of short-term rentals, maybe in buildings where there is lots of neighbors. I can understand that, but at the same time, I think you can't fight innovation, right? You can't stop innovation. It's a new type of economy, a new model. It's matchmaking between there is demand for something and people the owners they have something to offer to meet that demand. So that's going to exist. It's like the Uber for taxis or for other sharing platforms for the types of things. It's just a bit difficult in the short term probably to find the right. So define the right framework. How is this going to work socially with the neighbors? How is it going to work legally, fiscally? Because there's loads of questions and grey areas. So I think the impact, there is somewhat I think that needs to be manageable, and I think they're taking some steps to keep that manageable. Because let's not forget, the tourists are not going to go away. If you say you can't rent out apartment short term, I mean, the tourists are just going to go to a hotel next door, right? They're not going to go half an hour outside Barcelona. They're still going to come here. So let's face that reality.
And also, the thing that I really believe in is that the sharing economy has been it's a fabulous way to redistribute wealth in a good way, because most people who put their properties on there are low to middle class earners making a bit of extra money from their spare bedroom. They're not evil hotel chains. And
that's one of the impacts on direct impact on the households and on the families in Spain. Obviously, the second impact is obviously the people that go and rent an apartment. They spend money locally. If you go to a hotel, you've got breakfast in the hotel, you eat in the hotel, maybe your drinks in the hotel. And hotels, they don't buy locally. They buy from big distributors. They buy their fruit, their meat and so on. If you rent an apartment with your partner or your family or with friends, you buy vegetables downstairs, you buy cleaning products downstairs, you got your breakfast downstairs. So this all the shops, and there's data about it, all the shops, they benefit from it. So the local economy, and that's also local people. Right.
So what about from an investor point of view? Let's say I'm looking at Barcelona and in my mind I'm thinking, hey, it's a great city because of these short-term lets, but it's not as easy anymore, is it, to put your property on the market?
No, and actually we have many clients that come to us and they say they've read about it or they've heard about it, that there is a higher return if you rent out to tourists, short-term rentals. but there is something. It's not so easy. You can't just buy an apartment and start renting it out through any of the platforms like Airbnb or HomeAway or any other platform. It's not allowed. It's very simple. It's not allowed in Barcelona center. You need a license for that, so there's certain requirements for that. You also have to, it's a bit like a hotel, you've got to register your guests when they arrive. You've got to pay tourist tax per guest per night that stays at your place. And you've got to pay taxes on that income that you get from the rent. So, and I think that's absolutely normal. I think if you start to operate some kind of business, I mean, I also pay my taxes and you also pay your taxes. So if you get another source of income from renting out, I mean, it's fair to. The problem is that there is loads of these illegal apartments that don't have licenses, that just try to maximize the short-term gain, and then they will face problems in the short term with the local authorities, and probably have to shut down their place or pay high fines. But from the investor point of view, what does it mean? You can buy such apartments with a license. Don't buy one that doesn't have a tourist license. Don't buy it because you won't get one. The tap is closed. You don't get new license anymore. You can buy one with a license, but you pay a premium for these places. Why? Because you get a higher return from your investment.
Makes sense.
Because you rent maybe, let's say, at 150 per night, times an occupation rate of, I don't know, 60%, whatever, per month. And that means you get probably a bit more rental income than when you rent it long-term to a local family or to expats or whatever. But you pay a premium for that, and that premium is you see, it's typically in the range between 30,000 or so, 40,000 more expensive, such an apartment with a tourist license than another apartment. So that's something to keep in mind on the financial side. And you need to do the numbers if the numbers make sense. The second thing is, and that's related to how much headache do you want to have, because it's evident that it's a lot more work if you have people come and go every 2-3 days versus you have someone who comes and signs a contract for 3 years. You have just nearly daily customer interactions, emails, phone calls, problems, things that don't work, questions from people. So you need to be ready to do that, and you do it yourself, or you give the apartment then in the hands of a rental agency, someone who manages it for you. But then you start to pay them quite significant fees. Some even ask up to 30% of your income as a fee to manage all this hassle for you.
30% sounds a lot.
Yeah, we see it on the market. It's not easy, and the agencies know it's not easy, and many people certainly if you're from the US, for example, and you're investing here. So how are you going to manage these things from? It's hard. So it's take these things into account, and I think the final part is there is definitely some uncertainty in the legal framework around it. Today, it's all possible if you have the license. Nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow with that. The Colau government is not in favor of such apartments. If they change legislation tomorrow, if they increase requirements, if they increase taxes or whatever related to this type of rental, then everything might change. We don't know. They've just increased the tourist tax you pay for vacation rental, for short-term rentals. I think they equaled it to what a 5-star hotel, 4 or 5-star hotel space.
Really?
So it's ridiculous. But that's what's happening. So there's and that comes overnight. So these things you can't foresee. So there is some. It's always the same, right? If there's an opportunity for higher return, you will have to accept a higher amount of risk. Although otherwise it will be very easy to have high return with zero risk. Then that will be a very easy business.
Absolutely. No, thank you for that, Raf. Now, following last week's show, someone's got in touch. Jason Ray from Luxembourg has been in touch, and he's got a couple of questions for you, starting off with an issue that you just sort of glanced over earlier on in this conversation about ownership. When does ownership really mean ownership? When can you be absolutely sure that you own a property?
Okay, very, very, very good question. There's different steps when you see something you want to buy, an apartment. The first step is, and I quickly explain the process because there's different levels or steps towards ownership. You see something, you sign a reservation contract. Very, very low value, this contract, but it's good to sign it. You make very low level of commitment from both sides. You can buy, they will sell it. But to be honest, if someone comes and offers a higher price, we've seen many agencies just ignore your reservation contract, tear it apart, and just sell it to someone else. Because you pay typically maximum 1% of a purchase price. So imagine you buy something of 400,000 euros, you would pay 4,000 euros, and sometimes just 1,000 euros as a reservation. And why do they do that? Why do they charge maybe sometimes just 1,000? So they can get out the agencies very easily if they find someone who wants to pay more. The agencies, they make money on this from the seller, from the owner. They get a fee on the purchase price. So that's definitely not ownership right. That's a very first document you sign. You sign a private purchase agreement when you pay 10% of your property price to the owner. That's a very important guarantee. You're not an owner yet, legally, but you have a binding contract. You pay 10%. If the seller doesn't respect the agreement, he owes you the double. So you get very good protection. Make sure your contract is drafted correctly, so you are protected. But so basically means you buy something for 400,000, you pay 40,000, and if the other person doesn't sell it, you get 80,000 back. That's big protection. Very important document. Only sign that when you've done all the checks, when you're sure you want it, of course, and then when you've done all the checks, you know there's no surprises on it. And then we move towards full ownership, which is the third step, which is you go to the notary. Both parties, the selling and the buying party, go to notary, and you bring the money, which is by a bank check. So you go to the bank, they issue a check, which is covered by the bank, so the other party knows there's money on your account. And that's when the exchange takes place between your money. You go from the buyer, money goes from the buyer to the owner, and the owner gives you the keys of the apartment, and a notary all documents everything nicely on beautiful paper with capitalized letters on top, etc. And that is when a transfer of ownership takes place. There's one important post-notary step, which is everything needs to be registered. So you have the papers, you have the keys, you have paid it. You can start doing whatever you want with the apartment. You can start renovating it, you can resell it, and so on. But you need to go to the registration office. That's what we do for our clients, because it's bureaucratic and it's paperwork. You need to make sure, and they make sure that it's officially registered on your name and no longer on the previous owner's name. And that means that in any database, when notaries or when lawyers need to search for it, you will appear as the legal owner of the property, and that comes with all the benefits and all the obligations that it brings to you.
Okay, fantastic. Very, very interesting. I've got a couple of other quick fire questions for you. What about trying to renovate an apartment inside of a big building that has other people living there too? Is that complicated to set up and arrange?
No. You've got to... I mean, these things happen in many, many buildings in Barcelona. You often don't see it. You see the big sacks outside, often where you see they throw the garbage away, or the bricks and so on. It happens in many offices. What is good advice, and what we always do is, I mean, go and speak to your neighbors. Just common sense. Go and tell them, I'm the new owner, I'm going to do some renovation, and you explain a bit what you do. Maybe just changing kitchen and bathroom, or you say, it's going to be a big renovation. I'm going to be like 3 months making noise. And you tell them we start at, I don't know, 8 in the morning, or you say we start at 10 and we work till 6 and we don't work on Saturdays, or we do work. So try and make them, no neighbor will like the fact that that someone else is making noise in the building, but it's a reality in every city. Give
them a bottle of wine.
Yeah, everything is good, right? To be friends with your neighbors, and there's always one problem maker in every building.
Yeah, sure.
You always find them. People with too much time.
Yeah. Now, I understand, talking of buyers, you've actually written a guide to help buyers. Is that right?
Yes, because we see loads of recurring questions coming. So we help people buy. We don't sell anything. We help you search, negotiate to the contracting part, and go all the way to the notary. Many questions come, certainly initially, people have questions, where do I start? How does buying take place in Spain? Because if you're from the US, from the UK, from Belgium, Sweden, who are countries that are buying a lot here. It's different. Spain is different. España is diferente also in this sector. So I've written a short guide. I think it's 2 or 3 pages, going a bit more into detail around the process. What's important when you sign a document? What you should check before you sign, before you make payments. What's the difference between? There's a big difference between the role of a notary in Spain versus other countries. Very big difference. Why do you need lawyers in Spain? These kind of things are explained in there. When people can download it on our website. It's in inspireapartments.com. It's freely available. And so we try and do that to give people, to get them going, to answer the first questions they might have.
Fantastic. That's
good.
good.
We could probably get this on your social media channels.
Okay, sure. Let's post
so people can access to it easily.
No problem. We'll post a link to the guide on the Barcelona City FM Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram page as well. No problem. Now we've got a final question here. This is also to do with when you are choosing property, and I know that you've sort of glanced over this issue before about. In your mind, it's so important to know what you're looking for, isn't it, when you at the start of the process? What sort of questions? So if I'm thinking about buying a property, what questions would you ask me?
I mean, it's for people struggle often to define exactly what they want. They know they want to buy something, maybe an investment, maybe for them to live. But if you say, specify what does that mean to you, it becomes a bit more difficult. So we sit down and we talk about what's your goal? First question. What do you want to achieve? Are you going to live there alone with family? Is this a second residence? Maybe you come 2 times a year, or are you just buying and renting out? That's very, very critical to have clearly in mind. That drives the type of property you want to look for. That impacts the area and maybe the budget. Second thing is. What type of apartment would you like? So that's a what. How big, how beautiful, what type of building you like a new building or an old, nice, modernist place, Art Nouveau place in Barcelona. So what? Third important question is the financials. How much can you spend on it? How much can you potentially lend get from a bank? And how big is the total amount you can invest in?
It's all about the money.
It's partially about the money, yes, but it's very important because you need to cover the purchase price, you need to cover some taxes, you need to cover the notary. So you need to we help people to make sure we don't make mistakes in the budgeting up front, huh? So we know what property to search for. And then the final question is really location. Location depends a lot on your objective, what you want to do with the apartment. It depends a lot on your budget, obviously. And so these are the 4 important things. What do you want to achieve? What type of apartment? Budget-wise, what do we speak about? And location strategy.
Absolutely. Raf, I mean, this time always flies by.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of ideas for more radio shows on this.
No, gosh, we absolutely do. And if you want to get in touch with Raf directly, you can certainly find him on Facebook. That's at the Inspire Boutique Apartments, or you can go to his website, which is inspireapartments.es. .com. Oh, so sorry. Or you can get in touch with us here in the studio. And thank you very much to those of you that have done that already. I
think I like to answer questions from the audience, from the listeners, because it's we try to help people in the end, isn't it? We try to be relevant for the audience. So send in your questions.
Absolutely, and give us your problems.
It's your show.
Yeah, absolutely. Let us know what you would like to know, and we will do our very, very best to answer them. Excellent. Raf, well, thanks very much again. And we look forward to seeing you next week. And I know that you've got a busy week lined up, haven't you?
There's a busy week lined up because many people want to get things done or closed before summer starts.